Already.
So ready. Part 2 of the Blizzard of Boston. Hello, how are you? Welcome to the show called The Backpack Show.
Hello, where we bring you insights about success from unusual places. We have worked for months to get a negotiation expert on the show, and I'm very excited to report that today is the day. I can't believe it. So Kwame Christian has been on kind of like on my radar for a while, and he's an attorney as well as a negotiation consultant. So it took a while to get him to come in, but he's got a podcast. He's written a book. He's the best-selling author of Finding Confidence in Conflict: How to Negotiate Anything and Live Your Best Life. He has a really fantastic TED Talk. So we'll talk about all the things with Kwame and how to get what you want. We'll also talk with Casey Taylor, the VP of VEVA Sound, about the technology he's helped to create that makes sure that musicians who contribute to music get adequately compensated.
Which is extra super mighty important in this time for sure.
Oh yeah, because you can't perform live really. There's a lot of restrictions still in place. So
hey, look who's here, 4-time person of the day.
Should we get him a special jacket?
We're gonna get him a jacket. Can we make I just found a great jacket. That place that had the ducky shirt that I want to buy also has a jacket. It's a peppy little number.
I was gonna say Carol should make your cartoon Carol.
Like, did you get what I did though?
No,
I played the ending.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't.
Just to make it different. Just to make it different. I just did it different.
You just told people to go away and they just got here.
I tried to make it go. So I was like, I figured, they wouldn't.
It's not going to work. Do you know why?
Why?
Because people want to learn about business success from unusual places.
They do, and they want to hear about Kwame and Casey. And we got Rick's here. The Rick Olson made it in. All right, let's grab Kwame Christian quickly because otherwise bad things will happen. It'll be all shenanigans. But we have two great guests today. We're going to talk about the music business today. We're going to talk about the negotiation world and how important it is. And we are going to meet somebody who has done some big things in these big worlds. A lot of nice people showing up. Good to see you. Happy Friday, people of Earth.
Oh.
I'm grabbing Kwame. Hey, handsome.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
Don't objectify Kwame.
No, I like it.
Okay.
It's good. Good start. That's not the worst start you've had.
It's okay if you like it. Kwame's a business lawyer and negotiation expert from way back.
What makes you go that way? There's a lot of different kind of law to practice. There's the law that everyone thinks about, kind of trial law, and then there's all this procedural law. There's intellectual property, which I've met some of those kinds of lawyers, and they're sort of fun. What makes you pick, your lane, and what got you going down that road? It's a lot of work.
It is. Yeah. So my background is in psychology. My undergrad degree is in psych. And so this is really my way back to psychology. And so I started the American Negotiation Institute. Now I'm the director. We have a staff. We're growing. And the way that I got the street cred to be a negotiation consultant was by practicing. And so I wanted to be able to collect war stories. That's why I still practice at a firm called Carlisle, Patchen and Murphy in my free time, just to make sure I'm not trending towards that academic route. I still want to be able to keep my skills sharp. So then when I do my negotiation and conflict resolution trainings, I actually have something to talk about.
Do you package those as mostly training experiences? I mean, you're not doing this as you don't have a shingle out somewhere where they come in and they're still punching each other as they get in the door. We don't agree on anything. I'm guessing you try to do this ahead of the conflict.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's mostly corporate trainings. It might be a sales team or a procurement team. They're negotiating deals all the time. But the thing is, the way that I define negotiation, it's any conversation where somebody in the conversation wants something. So, hey, Chris,
every conversation,
everyone, right? You had one this morning with your neighbor about your car, right? So yeah, and so people are recognizing when it comes to team cohesion, working with other people on their team, and just collaborating internally, these skills are beneficial. So usually it's more the corporate training route.
Cool.
I need to talk to you about Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I'm always down for that. You want to hear something funny? I'm lactose intolerant, and I cannot stop eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Listen, it's
there's non-dairy alternatives to put on the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Kwame.
No, I'm a traditionalist, man. I'm a traditionalist.
Can't go with the almond or the oat or the soy. Nope.
Nope. Nope.
Okay. So you and Chris have something in common. You're both like, you're not the boss of me. I will.
Yeah, I can't eat certain sugar things, and I can't eat certain dairy products. I'm not lactose intolerant. It doesn't work the
I didn't
same way.
mean that. I just meant that you would continue to eat it because you wanted to.
Well, right, but I would eat it anyway.
Yeah,
like, you
exactly. No,
know,
you got it.
I would eat it. Like, I'd be sitting there trying to get a pencil into my neck.
So the
I'll be
commonality
fine.
is stubbornness, not lactose intolerance. So my question is this: so in the TED Talk, Finding Confidence in Conflict, you have this thing that happened, Cereal Gate, and
Yeah.
it centers on your love of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I didn't get to hear how it ended, so I need you to tell me about it.
Oh yes. So the story is, I just want to eat my Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but Whitney finishes it all the time, and she feels as though I buy it for the family. I really don't. I buy it for me, and so sometimes she would just finish it and not share, and that's really frustrating. And so at the talk with the TED Talk, I wanted to show people, yeah, I'm a business lawyer. I do these negotiation trainings and everything, but really the majority of the conflicts that we have are with the people who are closest around us. And so if we lean into those conversations and have them, put yourself in a good position to make things better. And so my motto is, the best things in life are on the other side of difficult conversations. And in this case, it's a nice full bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch if you do it the right way.
You could avoid the whole conversation and just like lock some up or put it inside like a box of Wassa Fiber Crisps. But I would
Oh, no one would go to the Wassa. You'd be safe.
completely.
So regarding that, one thing I was thinking about when you said that is, it's harder in a lot of ways to negotiate with someone that you've said yes to a lot. Now, it's obviously harder to negotiate with people you love, even though we have to do it a lot more often. So I guess we get a lot more practice to do it. But like, if you said yes in a business setting a bunch of times, like, yes, and we're cool and we're pals and we're partners, and now I have a problem with you. That's hard. How do we... I think there's a lot of anxiety that would build up around that. There's a lot of emotion that would cause a lot of challenges in that part of the negotiation. Do you cover that in your training at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is what I always say. You can't give recipes to people who are afraid to get in the kitchen, right? So I can give you all the techniques you want. You know, I can tell you exactly what to do, but if you're afraid, you're not going to do it. And so for the first 50-60% of my book, Finding Confidence in Conflict, I'm walking people through how they can overcome their personal, psychological, and emotional barriers. And so the one that you gave is a really good one, right? I have this friend, we're working together really well, but I'm afraid of leaning into this conflict because I'm afraid of losing the relationship. I don't want to risk that. And so we have to recognize that, again, we're putting ourselves in the best position to improve the situation. We want to be proactive by leaning in and having the conversation, but a lot of times people are afraid. So we just have to work through it.
Cool.
My kids are masters of negotiation, in as much as they will ask me at the last possible second for something they need that they know I probably don't want to give them, but like, we're out of time now. So they're like, hey, I need like $15 so I can go to the book fair today. And I'm like, really? $15? Like, nobody needs $15 for the book fair. But you know, they ask at the last second when they're getting out of the car or something, and you're like, okay. And then you only have a 20.
So timing in negotiation is a challenge too, isn't it? So you can use time as a weapon in negotiation.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your kids are on it.
Yeah.
You already knew that.
I hate to say it, I'm a lawyer, so they probably learned some of those techniques from me, but it's just grossly unfair for them to turn them back around.
By the way, I'm going to do Carrie's role for a minute, and I'm going to point out that Jonathan is on about Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's great dry, you know. Rex Williams.
No.
That's how Whitney eats it, right?
No.
In Washington, Rex Williams says, my son made me drive him to the grocery store so he could buy his own box. And Kate says, well, look, just have some Johnsonville sausage and everything will always work out. No, Johnsonville sausage is a sponsor.
That is true.
There we go.
That is true. But actually, when we were talking a little bit in the green room, I'd mentioned to you that when I was in law school, we studied Getting to Yes, and we studied Roger Dawson's Secrets of Power Negotiation. And those two approaches couldn't be more different. One is like, maybe one person wants the orange peel and the other one wants the inside of the orange. And it's like ridiculous bull. And then Roger Dawson's like, they want money, you want money. And it's like, somebody's going to get what they want and somebody's going to get less of what they want. So it's a little more realistic, but at the same time, less satisfying for both parties.
Yeah.
You embrace a completely different approach, which is compassionate curiosity. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so it's a three-part framework that you can use at work or at home. So, first step, acknowledge and validate emotions. Second step, get curious with compassion. And then the third step is joint problem solving. And so, here's the thing, the majority of our negotiations and conflicts fail really early because we don't do a good job of addressing the emotional issue at the beginning, right? We don't even get to a point where people are at a cognitive place where they can actually wrestle with the legitimacy of your argument because they're too upset, right? So we have to address that emotional side. Think about like a toddler. If a toddler is on the ground crying on the floor, just drooling and everything, it's gross. If a parent were to just say, little Jerry, I need to explain to you why this behavior is inappropriate. As you matriculate through life, blah, blah, blah. Can the baby understand? Like, no, they cannot process that. And the same thing happens in our adult lives, right? If we're too emotional, we can't process things effectively. So the first section is all about addressing that emotional issues by acknowledging it, validating it, and actually wrestling with that so you can move on and have a much more productive conversation.
So it's the difference between saying what the F is your problem and hey, how do you feel about this situation?
Exactly. And here's the thing, it's sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. And it's a process that takes time, but it works, right? It works because you end up with a relationship that is still intact afterwards, and you can get to the heart of the matter while overcoming those emotional issues. And then when you think about the examples that you gave, you have getting to yes, which is really nice, win-win, and then the other side that's more power-based. It creates a false dichotomy, because the reality is sometimes people just want all of your stuff. That's a reality. You have to have an approach that can adjust, because if you're strictly win-win and somebody is win-lose will always win in that situation, because the person who's win-win will bear the full responsibility of being reasonable and trying to do a give and take. So they're going to give, and the person who's win-lose will say, well, thank you. I'll take some more.
How that relationship feels after, how the person feels afterwards matters. Exactly. At least if you're going to continue having a business relationship in some way. If you're just going to like go across the country like a wandering negotiator taking advantage of people, I guess it's great. But most of us don't do that. So
yeah, I'm thinking most of our relationships are like that too. And I give the example. So I'm married. I've been married for 10 years. And imagine if I'm winning all of my negotiations, right? Who's putting Kai to sleep? Yeah, you are. Who's cooking dinner? You are. Who's cleaning? Am I really winning? That's going to come back at some point. And so we have to recognize that it's not just about the substance of the negotiation. It's about the totality of the relationship. This is an iterative process. And so we have to make sure that the relationship is intact so we can put ourselves in a good position going forward.
You definitely, if you're the winner of all those, you get the prize of the couch. Yes. Which is most definitely a biggie there. So
empty box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch every single day left in the pantry, so it looks like you have some.
I have a negotiation question, but first, Jonathan Harrison said, I love that go slow to go fast was my theme this week. My special operator friends, they say slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Rex said this just happened to him yesterday. So, this is very prescient. Let's talk salary negotiations. Someone's looking for a new job. They're talking to somebody about it. They're thinking, hey, maybe I need to go here. Who wins out of who throws the number on the table first and that sort of a thing? Talk about that for a second.
I will give you an unsatisfying lawyer response, and then I'll try to be a little bit better. So, Carrie, do you want to handle it?
You always want the other person to put it on the table first. They will not. And so it's like whoever's comfortable being quiet the longest.
Yeah, I remember I had a whole episode on the value of silence. So that's a real thing. And, it depends, right? It depends. And so in the salary, the rule that I follow is whoever has the most information, they should try to make the first offer, because then you could use anchoring. You're setting the reference point for the conversation. But in the salary negotiation situation, the company probably has a better idea of their financial situation, what their budget is, and all that stuff. So imagine this, if you're going into a salary negotiation and you decide to make the first offer, and they say, so Kwame, how much would you like to make? And I say, I'd like to make $100,000. And they're like, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, man, that works. Welcome aboard. You can see how that could be problematic.
You're like, damn it.
Exactly. And so in that situation, what you want to do in a salary negotiation, hear what their offer is, and then come up with some legitimate reasons why you can counter it higher. And then for the listeners, if they're interested, we have free negotiation guides on the website, americannegotiationinstitute.com/guide. Salary negotiation is one of them, and then there are 15 more that you could choose from. But take the time, prepare. That's one of the best ways that you can put yourself in the best position to succeed in these conversations.
Your Julia Ewart 2-part series on how to deal with silence is what I saw. There's an episode, and then you do a practice episode on your podcast.
Yes, the practice sessions. That's a
You're
fun.
just sitting there. The podcast is just half silence.
There were a lot of gaps in that episode. I had to tell the editor, I'm like, it's intentional, leave it there. But the practice episodes they're a lot of fun because I try to be as ridiculous and difficult and challenging as possible so that you as the listener know what to do in that situation. Then we do an ESPN style breakdown afterwards where we say, okay, I was trying to do this, you did that type of thing. And I think the most recent one that we have on the show is how to negotiate with narcissists and high conflict individuals. So that is who I got to be. I got to be that narcissist. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So you check out that one. That one's a fun one too.
That does sound like fun.
We have about a minute left, but Jonathan says, because he's got a friend. He says, I was wanting just a quick more note about win-win and win-lose marriages for a friend of his, not Jonathan.
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah. And here's the thing. In the context of marriage, there has to be a give and take. There has to be, right? Because you're a partnership in the truest sense. And so a lot of times in marriages, what ends up happening is somebody takes the role of people pleaser, where they say, I need to be the person to sacrifice more in order to make this work. But the thing is that setting effective barriers, that's a sign of love. You're putting them in a position where they can actually adjust their behavior to love you at a higher level, right? And here's the thing. A lot of times we make these sacrifices in the hope that the other side would reciprocate, and they start to create this role where you are the giver, they are the taker, and they start to believe that is the normal state of being in the relationship. So there's a lot of resentment that builds up. So even though you're giving in order to benefit the relationship, you're actually damaging the relationship because you are being filled with resentment more and more every day.
Kwame Christian, you're a good-looking man, and you're also smart and helpful. I mean, what are we going to do about all this? I got to stick you backstage for a minute.
Harassing Kwame right in front of me.
I am.
You're doing it on purpose.
Would you like to negotiate
Doing
that?
it on purpose.
Boom shakalaka. Yellow card, Brogan. And Brogan is going down like a bag of hammers tonight.
I'm putting you backstage but stick around because we have a second part of the show. We're going to do a quick, fast ad read, and then we're going to talk about music. Thank you, Kwame. Casey Taylor comes on in a second. Okay. cbrogan.me/StreamYard is how you can make your own show like this, and you can get very attractive guests.
Oh my gosh. You can
Brogan
find accomplished,
StreamYard.
experienced negotiators to come on your show and help people get what they want more often while still maintaining their relationships.
Where do you see Casey Taylor? No slouch. Also, this is a platform that you can put attractive people on. That's what I'm telling you. So cbrogan.me/StreamYard, make your own show. Hey, authors. Kwame is an author. Did you know that? He's not just handsome. He's an author. He wrote a book.
Yes, he did. And if he needs a website specifically for his book to promote himself as an author, to promote appearances when those are allowed again, and you go to pub-site.com. Super easy to use, highly customizable, really powerful website. And it's, even if you're not technical at all, it's very easy to use, and it's already got pre-built into it everything that authors need to promote themselves and their books. So check it out, pub-site.com. There's a 14-day free trial, and after that, it's just $19.99 a month.
And you could put anything you want on it. You could put your first book, Finding Confidence in Conflict, and you could put your second book on there.
I keep saying, if I was going to get a website, even if I didn't write a book, I would just set it up there because it's really easy to use. And then I would just write the book later.
Second book, Love Advice from the Cereal Bowl.
A lot of love for Kwame.
Yeah, good people. We're going to switch gears because that's what we do around here.
Brogan, you are fired up today.
I'm fired up, Rick Olson.
Kate thought you were going to put me backstage too.
Not if I know
that will be the day.
Not if I know what's good for me. So no, we are going to grab our other new friend, Casey Taylor, because we want to talk about music. We'll bring it down a little bit.
Okay,
talk a little bit about music.
Bringing it down. He's a lot of fun.
He's extra fun. I just meant musically. That's what they say sometimes. Okay, I'm going to bring it down a little bit, and they go to low tempo. But
that's when I would change the station back when you had to do that.
When you're running your Zooms and you've got a tip jar in your kitchen, it's not really helping. You're not getting that coin in there, and it's a tough time for musicians in general. I read the Left Set's letter. I know it's tough. We got to ask Casey what we're going to do about this, so that when you get that guitar back off the wall, get your practice going some more.
No one is going to pay me to play. They'd be more inclined to pay me to stop.
There's a little bit of dust on that baby. That's all I'm telling you right now. No, you've been practicing. I bet. I don't even know what songs you're doing lately.
Well, Christmas songs right now.
No, I'm not even talking to you. Casey, don't help anyone who's playing Christmas music.
Okay. Shut up. I play what he gives me to play.
Equally attractive Casey Taylor. Hello, and how are you today?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you. You're too kind. I'm feeling a little insecure following Kwame because he's an all-star. Just like in every way.
But all of us could use that information. I think it's actually especially important for musicians because a lot of times starting out in the industry, they'll sign whatever contract. Like they just don't know what's standard.
The first thing I always say to somebody trying to make it, if you've got a deal, whether it's a publishing deal or a recording deal or whatever it is, the first thing you need to do is talk to an attorney because the way that those agreements are written are confusing. Yeah. Well, I'll use the word confusing since the major labels are clients of mine, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of the younger musicians in particular haven't learned yet the value of silence, like Kwame was saying, that, a lot of times just don't say anything. Or if you have to do something when they make you an offer, you go, oh my gosh, just look really incredulous about it. But they're so excited to get a deal, and can you blame them?
No, not at all, because I think all of us are looking for the clearest path to what we want. And a lot of times if success as a musician is what you're looking for, the clearest path is to get a deal, whether it's a writing deal with a publisher or a recording deal with a label, the clearest path provided, it fills you with hope. And so, if you get a deal, they'll pay you 50 grand to put out an LP. It's like, oh, great. Now I'm a musician. Now I'm doing it. Now I'm getting paid. But then you find out later that that song that you wrote and recorded 20 years ago ends up being a later generation hit. And you find out, oh, I have no rights to earn against that work. It gets a little muddy, that's for sure.
The walking through the site, this is the tab I didn't get to yet, which is your technology site. This is a lot about archival work. This is a lot about making sure that, what you get early is what you get late and that sort of a thing. And at first, when I was reading through, I was like, when am I going to get to the word blockchain that tells me this is how we're managing all the money and all that? And I haven't hit that yet. So I'm just curious, whose problem are you solving most with VEVA sound? Is it VEVA or VEVA? Help me out.
VEVA.
It is VEVA. VEVA. Okay. Just with some ease. Help me out.
So VEVA sound. The assumption that I'm wrong. Sorry.
We're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain has been kind of a buzzword in the music industry. Yeah. And in 2016, every single conference you went to, there were 15 sessions on blockchain. Mm-hmm. I really have to look at the data ecosystem as a whole. And from the time a piece of music is written and or recorded, all of the places that data has to survive through by the time it's listened to on a streaming platform, and then all the data that has to get backfed to get everybody paid. It's an incredibly complex supply chain, data supply chain. And so, by us saying we're going to implement blockchain, we're more than welcome to do that. And we're more than willing to do that. But where does that plug in? It's really an industry-wide discussion. And what we're doing right now is just trying to get some uniformity in how we reference these things. So like a songwriter is, as according to the digital supply chain, a composer lyricist instead of a songwriter. So like what we call things has to become uniform, how we reference things, who's getting paid what, all of those things everyone in the music industry has to agree on all of those things before we can standardize the supply chain across everyone. And a lot of work has gone into that. So for the last 20 years, VEVA has verified, validated recordings. And so essentially it's our job that when a label commissions a recording, that those final recordings are submitted to us. We go through the entire session, everything, and who made it into the final mix, whose guitar part actually is in the final release product, all that kind of stuff. We actually verify and validate the credits and the metadata for every recording, and then make sure that people are getting paid accurately. And 20 years of that work is what led us to release VEVA Collect.
You've been working on this for 20 years, since you were what, 5?
Thank you.
How does this help with collaboration? Like, what role does this play in aiding musicians right now who are collaborating a lot of times remotely?
Well, we've been trying to get people paid. Like I said, I haven't been at VEVA for 20 years, but we've been trying to get people paid for 20 years. And what we realized is that the best time to collect all that information is when you're making the music. Because for so long, what would happen is the music would be made, and then it was our job to call everybody and say, like, who was in the room when the drums were tracked that day, and who did this and who did that, you know. And labels have A&R admin teams, data teams, teams of people whose job it is to verify all of this information to make sure everybody's getting paid, union cards are filled, there's production coordinators, there's all sorts of people in the ecosystem that fuel this supply chain. And VEVA Collect really is a software platform that we developed because we want to bring those enterprise level resources to individual creators. So if you don't have teams of people supporting your process, feeding your information into the supply chain, making sure all of your collaborators are well credited and compensated, we want to. And so VEVA Collect is a platform that right now, for credits and metadata in the recording process, it actually brings all those people together and allows them to note their own information in the recording process. And we're hoping in the new year to release some new features that do some cooler things with metadata, like recommending genre, recommending tempo and things, because the implication too of data, and sorry, this has all been boring to this point, but
Not for me. Keep going.
The real implications of this are where, you know, Pandora really shifted music discovery, right? Mm-hmm. But Pandora had a bunch of people in cubicles listening to music, tagging it, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then now you've got Spotify and Apple and Tidal and streaming platforms that I'm finding new music more regularly because Spotify has recommended it to me than I am by reading newsletters, talking to friends, getting personal recommendations. The thing is as technology evolves for the way that consumers consume music and discover music, all of these services are going to need to know more about the music in order to recommend it to its users. So if I say, hey, Siri, play me something wistful, well, how the hell is Apple going to know what song is wistful if I don't tell them, hey, I made this song and it's wistful? So like, there's a lot of things. And so for independent creators, if you've got a label deal and you're with a major label and they're doing all of these things to make sure that your work is tagged accurately, then as an individual creator, you're kind of at a disadvantage because you don't have teams of people to make sure that your music exists in the ecosystem in a way that is discoverable. So we develop VEVA Collect to make sure people get credit, make sure people get paid. And then our plans are to continue to evolve it to equip individual creators to keep their music discoverable and their data sets rich.
I feel like there's a lot of functionality and value and incredibly useful stuff hidden in here that requires you have to convince everyone on every side of this thing, every single stakeholder, because someone's like, dude, I just want to play my guitar. And you're like, fine. But, you know, and then you have labels who want all the data, even though they don't know what they're going to do with it. And and half of their asking is, you know, for punitive reasons. Like, how do I go after that? Yeah. I got to copy strike that guy. Yeah. We've been copy struck 4 times on the show with the artist in the room with us. So
letting us play their stuff for like a second. Yeah.
We're twitchy playing any piece of audio now. Yeah. But so there's that. There's also the future-proof stuff. And then I just had one other mangle for anyone who's watching. Like, I'm really into this. So if they hate it, they can go. But add to that something like sampling. Add to that something like, so now I'm Lil Nas X and I decide I'm going to grab, some Alabama something or rather from 1934 that we basically have like wax and no data. That makes it harder too. So that's all just commentary. I don't have anything to tell you about that. But what I was going to ask when I looked at it all, especially when I looked at all the different types of data sets and sort of like schema management and all that stuff that you're doing, my question out of all that mix is, hasn't this been a really hard road to convince everyone why this makes sense? Even if you can get one person nodding, it seems like a really kind of, because you said play something wistful. Like that's the thing people are thinking is, how come Spotify's not smarter yet? That's all they want out of all of this stuff you do.
Right.
Is that what you end up feeling like after a bit?
Yeah, and the biggest thing, especially in music, is there's a lot of like, whose job is it? So whose job is it to sit there with a legal pad and write down everybody who's involved with this? So like if you look at Folklore from Taylor Swift, you look at the credits list, it's like 1 million people worked on Folklore. And in fact, the strings player recorded the strings for a song in a small studio in Lakeland, Florida. So like, whose job is it to make sure that on that day, whatever tracks were recorded, and we're tracking, okay, so they record, let's say they did like 10 takes of strings. Which of those takes actually made it in the recording? What if there were 2 string players in the studio? Whose part actually made it into the released recording? All that kind of stuff. And so it seems trivial, especially like on a mass scale of like, well, you know, there's an artist and a writer. You know, somebody wrote the song, somebody performed the song, but really not, because if my mom forced me to take piano lessons and then pipe organ lessons for some reason. I don't know why. So I took pipe
you never
organ.
asked. You're just like, okay, I guess I'll do
Like,
this.
all right, here we go. And then my teacher started calling me Stacy instead of Casey. And I was like, something's weird with Miss Audrey. And it turns out she had dementia. And I was the one who diagnosed her at 8 years old. I was like, somebody needs to call somebody about Miss Audrey. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But you know, let's say I played pipe organ, and to your point, very creative artists incorporated my pipe organ into their song. How do I prove that I was the guy? Like Lil Nas X uses my pipe organ sample in his song. How do I prove that? And how do I get paid for that? And how do I then build a career as a pipe organist and get credit for what I'm doing if there was nobody there to take it? And
really?
then
Because there's almost no other ones. Like,
well, yeah, that's true. But anyway, so it's like the big conversation right now is whose job is it, right? And so by making it a SaaS platform, and we have a free check-in app where if you walk into a session or you're collaborating on a session remotely, you can input your own information. So we're kind of empowering everybody who collaborates on a song to submit their information into the product individually. And there are 2 implications to that. Number 1, it solves the whose job is it? It's everybody's. Just put your own stuff in there. And number 2, you know, say you're a second assistant engineer in the studio and a legendary guitarist walks in, but you don't know how to spell his last name. Are you going to be the guy who's going to say, excuse me, superstar, how do you spell your name? You know, it just, and you need legal names and stage names and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's what we're trying to solve. And it is an educational uphill.
Jane Morehouse apparently learned to play pipe organ over just a summer. So we had a pipe organ prodigy.
Well, I will tell you something. It is therapeutic because there's an old cathedral in St. Augustine, Florida, where they have a massive pipe organ. And my parents took me there for my birthday one year to play the organ. That was my gift, the ability to play a pipe organ. And I still remember that moment, because if you at 8 years old can push 10 buttons and make an entire building shake, there's a feeling of power that's otherwise unachievable.
That was her reason for making you do it.
I guess.
Sure of it. Kip says it almost always comes down to findability, regardless of the industry, doesn't it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's promotability and findability. And as things change, one thing with the pandemic that we've understood is a lot of the music industry is still dependent on live performances, not just ticket sales and things like that. But if you want to break an act, you still got to tour them, and you've still got to get it in front of live audiences, you know. And so technology plays a role in that. I'm not going to say that like the music industry is going to evolve to the point where it's all digital and it's all streamed. The live component still plays a significant role, but as things do evolve, and as platforms and hardware and software makers try to make their products more magical, the only thing that's going to fuel that magic is rich data sets. And I think that's something that creators don't think about. You know, you paint a painting and say, okay, everyone's going to see this painting and make up their own mind. Well, what happens if there's a platform for painting display, and I'm on my phone looking at paintings? The only way that platform is going to know what I like is what it knows about the painting, and the only way it knows about the painting is what I tell about it.
So we're unlikely pals with Sir Mix-a-Lot. And one of the stories that Sir Mix-a-Lot tells us about is that, when he got his first money, he did what most every band does with their first money. Woohoo! And then, taxes come and eat it all up, and he has to pay a lot of people back, and nothing good happens. And he has no money. And then he's like, wait a minute, I think I could do this. And he started mastering the art of intellectual property and all that, and owning his rights and owning his licensing and his publishing. He now has a massive, his empire is publishing. Like when Nicki Minaj wanted to do Anaconda, he made a bag of money. He made almost more money than he did for Baby's Got Back.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say, this is a product that he would want to use, because he talks to he's got a label where basically what he does all day on the label is try to convince kids not to join it. He just says, make your own.
Yeah.
And we've seen with Macklemore, we've seen with so many other, acts that the allure, and I know those are your clients, so I'm not going to say too many mean things, but the allure of a label is different than it used to be. Just like I am as a book author, having a publisher is no great shakes anymore either.
Goodness gracious, Chris.
It's a thing, woman.
Well, it's the idea of a platform. The stage used to be this big.
That's right.
And the label, they chose who to put on the platform. And then the platform got a little bit bigger because there were more channels, more subgenres, all that kind of stuff. And now the platform is a mile wide and a mile deep, and everyone's on it, and everybody has a megaphone. And so when everybody has a megaphone, all you're doing, it's just the collective noise just gets louder and louder. And so the question that every artist has to ask themselves is, how do I stick out? And to the point of Sir Mix-a-Lot, you never know when you're collaborating a song that's going to break bad 20 years from now. And so you want to make sure that your credits are accurate on that song, because like when Mariah Carey released All I Want Is for Christmas Is You in 1994, no one thought it was going to do what it did. And so if you collaborated on that song back in the 90s, you're going to want to make sure that your credit is accurately noted, because here we are collecting, I think I read a report, it's like $1 million a year in royalties she makes every December for that song.
Yeah,
so
she didn't have to do another thing ever. So that whole like New Year's Eve fiasco could have been avoided. She could have just been like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
All right, Kwame, let's bring Kwame back. He said he's
He's here. There we go. Okay.
Oh, yep.
Phew, little nervous, but we got everything. Oh, wait, watch this.
Oh, you got to put him back on the show. Whatever sides we happen to be out on in the green room, Chris needs that like exactly how it is when we're out here.
It's like fork and spoon this far apart, that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
All true. Well, here we are. You just listened, Kwame, to a new technology that's going to help people a little bit more with negotiation, because there's going to be a lot of data available. What's your take on bringing data into things like negotiation? And what do you think that, when you hear what you just heard about VEVA Sound, what do you take out of that?
It's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant approach, a brilliant platform. So kudos to you on that. And the more data, the better. And we have to understand though how to use the data, right? Because we're living in the information age. People have more access to information than ever before, but I don't think anybody's saying we're wiser than before. And so we have to. The data is one thing, but being able to use it persuasively in a conversation is another. So putting those two things together really puts you in a great position.
Fazia is here. She's one of the best book promoters in the whole country. So, and I know you have a book. So what was the negotiation like when you got your first book published? Were you like, here's how it's going to go?
Well, so I self-published the first one because I just wanted to be able to do it very quickly.
Good.
And then I said, man, that sucked. I'm going to traditional rap. So I do have a book deal for 2021. It's how to have difficult conversations about race. So recognizing the challenge that we had this year, using negotiation and conflict resolution skills in that arena to give like a skills-based guide for how to have those conversations. And it is nice to work with a publisher, and I let my agent do the negotiation too. Yeah.
No, really? Yeah. Wow. How'd you let that one go?
Well, here's the thing. I had a guest on my podcast, and she described it really, really well. She said, if you've already talked to God, why talk to the apostles? And so in a negotiation, it's often good to have a bit of separation between the person who's the final decision maker and the person actually at the table. So I trust my agent to do a good job, and she always brought the deals back to me. I would say yay or nay, and then she would go to work. So it allows me to have a really good relationship with the publisher, even if the negotiation is tough.
I love that. See, I do that for Chris.
Being the person interviewing. Oh, I'm sorry, Gary.
No, I was just saying, I would do it, but Chris is so unreasonable.
Can you imagine being the person interviewing to be Kwame's agent? Like, I'm going to negotiate on your behalf.
He's
Yeah.
like, "Go get 2.5% and like it."
So I'll tell a quick story about that. My first book came out. My first book won all the awards you could win for a book, and so I was feeling it. And worse, people around me were feeling it, saying, "Dude, you did that all without an agent, so you got like a crappy advance, and you didn't negotiate much of anything." I go, "Are you kidding me? I wrote a book." I'm like, "Yeah, good job." So I went with a very well-known literary agent who got my co-author Julian and I an incredible advance, and it was incredible negotiation. And then he negotiated my next book right after, like back to back right after. And I hated the whole process because I just kind of wanted to write the book. Like I didn't want, he was like the Death Star, showing up at a fist fight. And so oddly, I fired him because he's really good. Because I would rather, I'm a lose-win negotiator. So I really just wanted to lose-win some more. But anyway, 3 lawyers in the house now. We have Mitch Jackson out in California saying hi. So we have one other question, which is, and Mitch says hi, and also a lot of people are excited about the conversation. And Kate points out great diversity on your board, Casey. So that's good.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
just you need to know. You know what I'm going to ask is the backpack question, but first we have to do our person of the day. And let me just look through.
Be today.
I'm so excited.
Actually, I know who it's going to be. Hang on, I just figured it out. It's completely capricious and arbitrary.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
I'm going to give it to the other pipe organist in the house, James.
Hey, James.
People didn't know they needed skills to qualify as person of the day. It's unfair.
The only pipe organ song that even comes to my head is like Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Like after that, what else do you actually play on a pipe organ?
You never been to church?
A lot, but like
how would they play at church?
You get to the big D minor, wah, and the room shakes. That's the pipe organ song. Everything else doesn't count. So anyway, the pipe organ song.
I chose the wrong instrument to study, I guess.
That's why I need VEVA sound.
So you'll get credited for your pipe organ?
No, so that Bach or whoever wrote Toccata and Fugue gets it. Except Mozart or Bach. It doesn't matter. None of us care. All right. The other thing we got to ask is the backpack question, which is what goes in your backpack. This is a world where everything's changing all the time. Everything's different. Casey's trying to find money for artists who have been off the stage for a year plus and who are now, hoping to get on TI's, not TI. Who do I mean? He's doing the really cool Instagram. T-Pain is doing the incredible Instagram live jams and mixes where 2 million people show up to watch him just DJ for a little bit. 2 million people who were making fun of T-Pain for 10 years prior, who are now like, oh no, I always liked him. So it's a tough time out there. The world is different. The world has changed, and you can only put so much in a backpack, right? So it's like negotiating with yourself what goes in. I need one item, either physical or metaphorical. It could be something physical. Carrie, what do you have? What's something physical?
Physical, a banana, a book you hate, a smartphone, a banana. Did I say that? Avocado.
An avocado. Butterscotch, the 5-time world champion beatboxer, said a banana because it helps with the...
To make the noises. Yeah, to make the noises.
Wait till you hear Butterscotch on our holiday episode.
She's amazing. No spoilers. Stop it.
No spoilers. All right.
But it could also be something, something
like
more, like hope or vulnerability or a sense of humor or empathy or something like that.
Or just good looks. Casey Taylor, what goes in your backpack?
Mindfulness. We, in the summer when the storm was raining down, we brought in a consultant to practice mindfulness and meditation once a week in our all team call. And it's been extremely helpful just to, not necessarily any kind of, whether you're spiritual, religious, whatever you are, just to sit for 15 minutes and figure out what is inside of me. Why do I feel the way that I feel? And the biggest question that I've asked myself throughout this year is how much of your stress exists in your imagination? How much of your stress originates in your imagination? And that's been a huge question for me And I try to ask myself that every morning before I get on the phone with anybody, because it's really easy to lose sight of how you really feel and how you really think when you're reactive. So mindfulness is what I would use this year.
Bob Collins is bringing back one of his favorite backpack answers. Someone else's teeth. Still one of my favorites.
Who put that in there? I forget. It was this last week. It was somebody said another set of teeth in case that. Oh, it was that DJ Cummerbund?
Oh yes,
our mashup guy DJ Cummerbund.
Now that you say it, it makes
I'm gonna need another set of teeth.
Perfect sense. And there's somebody who should know like both.
He needs to know about VEVA, and
he does remixes on YouTube, and they are phenomenal. But they use like 10 or 15 different songs to do it. So they're crazy.
So every now and again he gets into trouble with somebody.
But, a little bit.
He also does a great Macho Man imitation. If you know your old timey wrestlers.
Oh, go check him out. So
mindfulness from Casey. How about from Kwame? What goes in your backpack?
I would say the ability to learn. That's it. Because the thing is, we all have problems, right? But then if we can figure out the skills it takes to improve, then those problems are we can work with that, right? And I feel like learning is my superpower. I try to, let me say, in pre-COVID world, I would try to read a book a week. I would say read, but I was using Audible, just listening really fast, taking notes as I go.
How do you listen fast? You listen up, you like speed it up?
Speed it up, yeah. So I listen in 3.5 times speed, and then I use the phone, and I take notes at the same time, so I can get through a pretty hefty book in a week and take about 20 to 30 pages of notes just on the commute.
When I'm on 2 times, I feel like a robot. I feel like data going, and I'm like 3.5.
It took a while, but it's I learned from a friend who he went blind in college, so he had to learn how to be blind, and he shadowed an attorney, and she would always go through and listen to her notes and the cases, and he said the first time he heard the notes, he didn't even register it as words. And so I was like, oh, okay, so you can get faster at this. So I just kept on practicing 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. The leap from 3 to 3.5, that took the longest. But once you get there, I mean, you can get through books very, very quickly.
Wow.
Lord.
I mean, I'm not doing novels like that, but also maybe business books I have to read for interviews and stuff.
Yeah. I gave up fiction a long time ago. I'm like, man, if I want fiction, I'll just watch TV. But
doesn't read the Cinnamon Toast Crunch box.
Exactly right.
So after this show, I'm gonna put my Audible on at 3.5 and just see what you hear. It's gonna sound like bugs. It's gonna tell me to kill the neighbor's dog.
We never found out what kind of breakfast cereal Casey likes. I feel like we need to know.
I think we need to know.
Oh, I'm savory, not sweet.
Oh, boo!
Oh, so the Johnsonville sausage idea might work out.
Yeah, so like a hash brown casserole or like cheese grits and biscuits. Like I'm more of that. Yeah, I would take a bag of Doritos over most things.
Apple Jacks. I would eat Apple Jacks, and they taste different from Fruit Loops, and you can't convince me different.
Are you a gamer then, Casey? Because that's all game food as well, what I just heard.
No.
Okay.
No, he just happens to eat it.
A lot of cod or something with little orange fingers.
Fine, be that way, Kip. Or Apple Jacks for me.
The only, out of the many musical instruments I took, I can tell you that my grandmother started a secret fund to get me to stop playing violin. And my mom and dad, it was only I only had a violin for about a week and a half before I got into another instrument because, well, it's what Grammy said. She said,